Okay, welcome everyone to today's talk. The talk title is Assessment of Health Impacts of Common Environmental Endocrine Disrupting Chemicals. This is the 28th talk of a series targeting to promote agrobiotechnology and enhance understanding of the potential application of agricultural products. We hope the series will inspire international scholars, researchers, farmers, and business in the agricultural field, as well as the interested public. First, let me introduce our speaker. Shelley is a professor of occupational and environmental health and epidemiology at the School of Public Health and Primary Care in CUHK. Shelley obtained her Bachelor of Medicine from Fudan University and then obtained her PhD degree at CUHK and received further training in the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health of USA. Professor Shelley is awarded several competitive research grants from National Natural Science Foundation of China, Research Grants Council, Health and Medical Research Fund, and international grants from NIH to support her research in occupational and environmental health and cancer epidemiology. Shelley received the second-class award of State Scientific and Technological Progress Award in 2014-2015 on silicosis, mechanisms and preventions with China partners. Until now, she has about 200 research publications, and her representative publications are Annals of Oncology, Journal of Thoracic Oncology, Environmental Health Perspectives, JAMA Network Open. In this presentation, Shelley will present relevant findings regarding the association between environmental exposure to bisphenol A and the risk of malignant and non-malignant health outcomes based on two funded research projects in China and Hong Kong. The impact of pesticides on fertility health will be presented based on a collaborative birth control study. These findings provide solid epidemiological evidence that chronic exposure to environmental bisphenol A and pesticides were associated with elevated risks of diverse health outcomes. Thus, contributes to the growing body of literature on harmful effects of these environmental estrogen disrupting chemicals, providing additional evidence for removal of sources. So now let's welcome Professor Shelley to the floor. Shelley, please.
Thank you, Professor Lance, for the very nice introduction to my background. So I'm going to share my screen and trying to, yes, okay. So trying to, that my research. So a little bit quiet. So it's a bit higher. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this topic actually is not kind of it's not a very easy topic to me because I'm going to to present some research output and wanted to share my research experience about assessing health impacts of common environmental endocrine disrupting chemicals, that some of them done by my research team, and some of them actually are the collaborating the research and output. So I'm Shelley Zhe in School of Public Health and Primary Care of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So first of all, I need to declare there is no conflict of interest of my research. And also my second going to declare is that I'm not the expert, I'm not the expert in chemistry, but I wanted to share some of my research linking like environmental chemicals and the health as well as the public health issues, so that maybe of your some interesting. So my contents of my say the presentations, including first of all, I think it's necessary to have some overview of endocrine disrupting chemicals. So we give the abbreviation, the name EDCS, and a persistent organic pollutants. So because I think not everyone really have a sufficient background in these say chemicals, so I would like to have some introduction at the first. And the second, I believe, which is a very important, which is the Stockholm Convention on POPs, on persistent organic pollutants. So because why I emphasize on the POPs, because this is very important chemicals that will damage or deteriorate the not only the environment, but also to human health. So from my presentation, you will find, okay, you will also understand why this, we say, emphasize this, these kind of POPs, because this is related to the sustainability of environment and also the sustainable of our human beings. And the third part is I'm going to share my research output, which is related to some evidence. We say from kind of a strength of evidence on EDCS and human health. So we actually presentation will based on my the research, actually research in POPs, which is one of them is major important chemical, major important POPs, which is a dioxin in breast cancer. So share with that kind of research. And the second part, which is related to pesticide exposures and fertilities, human fertility data. And then the third part is bisphenol A exposure with multiple health outcome. So elaborate some policy implications. So I will also leave some times for Q&A. So first, let's see EDCS and POPs. So we know that endocrine disrupting chemicals is the substances in the environment, actually like from air, soil, or water supply, food sources, personal care products, and manufactured products that interface with the normal function of our body endocrine system. So by actually through mimic or interface with the body's hormones of the endocrine system. So these including the brain, something inside our brain like a pineal or hypothalamus, and also our thyroid, pancreas, adrenal glands, and our reproductive organ, including males and females like ovaries and testes. So these will eventually, if these kind of our body, human body's endocrine system and organs is damaged by these endocrine disrupting chemicals, and then this will link to some adverse health problems of our brain, of people's developmental issues, immunity, reproductive issues, as well as other health problems. So this means that studying these endocrine disrupting chemicals actually have lots of meanings for not only environment, but also public health and human, individual people's health. So when we recognize the EDC, we know that EDC actually have they have variations in half-lifetime. Okay, so when we talk about half-lifetime, this means that the mass of these chemicals actually reduce 50% in mass. So this actually take how many years from for these chemicals? So like urine, okay, urine, which can take like hundreds of years for decay. Okay, so this is about half-life time. So we know that some EDCS, some endocrine disrupting chemicals, they have very long half-life time. So this type of, with long half-life time chemicals, they are slow to break down in the environment. So we call this as the persistent organic pollutant, so POPs. So these issues actually is becoming a growing environmental problems affecting long-term health of people as well as their next generation. For example, the name of these POPs could include like dioxin, DDT, PFOS, PCB, and the OPS and the PYRS. These are say a pesticide, okay, organic pesticide. Another type, which with like a short lifetime. So the typical one is bisphenol A. We say BPA. So, but BPA actually is not technically POPs. Okay, it is technically it is not a POP, but it is often grouped with other POPs as it can accumulate in several human tissues and organs, so contributing to the pathogenesis of several diseases. Therefore, EDCS is an important topic in strategic area of environment and sustainability. So POPs, so persistent organic pollutants, we say POPs, are the organic compounds that are resistant to environmental degradation through whatever, like a chemical, biological, and a photolytic process. Because the POPs actually not only like not easy to digest by the environment, POPs by itself, it is very high toxic chemicals, so potentially significant impact on both environment, both human health and the environment, because they are highly toxic to human and other animals. Second, it has long half-life time and persistent in, so what are comments? Okay, so persistent in the environment for long period and are capable of long-range transport through air or water and disperse throughout many ecosystems. And then by their physical chemical properties, they are lipophilic and could be bioaccumulate in human and animal fatty tissue and the biomagnifier in food chain. So we are the end of food chain, the human being actually end of food chain, so we are affected. Okay, so based on this very like a brief and overview knowledge on EDC and POPs, let's see in the global, there is a Stockholm Convention on POPs. So Stockholm Convention is an international treaty to protect the human health and the environment from POPs. So it was, so the Stockholm Convention was adopted in 2001 and entered into force in 2004, initially covering 12 chemicals, aims to first restrict and then eliminate POPs by controlling their manufacturing, application, storage, and disposal. So which is from source, to control from source, and also including how to dispose these highly persistent chemicals. Currently, so as of 2017, so there are additional 16 POPs have been added by 181 parties in the world to the Stockholm Convention. So in addition to the initial 12, okay, so Hong Kong, because we are Hong Kong is one of the party. So every, like the party, they got a consensus and an agreement. So they sign in the Stockholm, Convention. So you see that here, initially, dry pops have been recognized as causing adverse effects on human and the ecosystem. And then they can be placed into like 3 categories, or we say 3 forces. So including, one is pesticides. The second one is industry chemicals. And the third one, which is byproduct, we say unintentional products. So included in the convention, so pesticide actually include endrine, chlordane, DDT, iodine, endrine, captoprene, and hexachlorobenzene, we say HCB, Mirex, and toxaphene. Okay, so I think maybe some of us we don't know what you're talking about. Okay, it's okay. So they're in the list actually. And then for the industry chemicals, so I highlight here because it's duplicate with pesticide. So industry, HCB, and the PCBS. Okay. So for the unintentional byproduct, so include like a PCBS and the PCDDS and the PCDFS. So PCDDS and the PCDFS actually they are the dioxin. And a PCBS, PCBS, this is dioxin-like chemical. Okay, so you can see that for the byproduct, we are talking about mainly focus on dioxin. So this is the, I copy paste from Stockholm, the convention. So you can see that there are 3 major types: pesticide, industry chemical, and unintentional product. We say this is the byproduct. So in my research, we got a research grant from Hong Kong, Research Grant Council to study electronic waste recycling workers and their EDCS metabolites from the urine sample. So the study is still ongoing. So this time it's not the good time for me to share this part of research to you, but I can share something from a pesticide as well as unintentional products, okay, in this seminar. So this list, that is the new added new POPs by Stockholm Convention. So this is like an introduction to the chemicals added to Stockholm Convention as POPs by the Conference of the Parties as of 2017. So I'm not intention to present these POPs one by one. I only point out these are the sources of the new POPs. If you're interested, I think you can go further, okay, go through details from the website of the Stockholm Convention, okay, Stockholm. So actually, I think the chemical is complicated, okay, so it's really not that easy to really understand every of them, okay. So what everyday products may contain EDCS? I think maybe some of you say, oh, you say EDCS is important and also toxic. So what products that we should be aware of? So when we actually using like a daily products. So I would say here, which is the plastic bottles and containers, the liners of metal food can, detergents, flame retardants, food, toys, cosmetics, and pesticide. Okay, so we can summarize, I not list like every product, I only list some major things that I know, okay? And also many scholars know the common daily products. And the second is that what are the common EDCS in these daily, everyday products? So which include like bisphenol A, we say BPA, dioxin, which is a byproduct, and the perchlorate, PFAS, and phthalates, and phytoestrogen. This is with a PBDE. It's not easy to pronounce. the polybrominated bisphenol ethers. Okay, so PPDE and the PCB. As I said, PCB, which is dioxin-like chemical. Okay, so its toxin is a very similar toxicity as dioxin because it contains chloride. Okay, from the chemical structure. And another is triclosan. And the last one that I believe is related to agriculture, products, that is organophosphate and pyrethroid pesticide. So I give the abbreviate simple name OPS and PYRS, so which represent these two type of pesticide. So these kind of we say whatever POPs or like non-POPs, okay, so they are belonging to the EDCS. So how these actually enter our human body? The majority from like ingestion, so which is from hand to mouth. Okay, so usually by drink or by food, enter our human body. The second one is by inhalation, because the POPs can, with another form like aerosol or VOCs, okay, volatile organic compound, or which is aerosol, okay, so enter our human body, so inhalation. And the third one could be by absorption. So this is by skin contact, direct skin contact, and then absorb our human body can cause like local like allergy, and then sensitization, or even like a whole body systemic toxicity effect. Okay, so that we say is toxic, okay, intoxic already. So since EDCS come from many different sources from external, with the outer environment, so people actually are exposed in several ways by multiple routes of exposure. So this make some environmental hygienist people not easy to capture the EDCS from just like from the environment, okay, because they have different sources. So in this case, our internal dosage using marker, we say using biomarkers, or even like using metabolites of human body to reflect the environment exposure. That is, I believe, is a better way to capture the exposure. So we know that from the terms of like strengths of evidence on EDC and public health, we know that EDC can cause adverse effect in animal. So that evidence is quite strong from animal studies. Okay, so can see evidence shows that exposure to POPs is associated with increased risk of serious health problems, including certain cancers, like, different like breast cancer or prostate cancer. So that was some kind of evidence. Birth defects, dysfunctional immune and reproductive system, greater susceptibility to disease, and even diminished intelligence. So that's why currently many studies are looking into the cognitive impairment and the long-term exposure for this endocrine disrupting chemical, because these are from toxicological study from animal, from like cell line. They confirm there is a strength, okay, kind of strong evidence to support from animal studies. However, limited scientific information exists on potential health problems in human. So I like this statement because this provide me, okay, some rooms and the knowledge gaps, which provide me some, confidence to further research, to conduct some research in here, because evidence is needed. Okay, so they would need more human evidence because people are typically exposed to multiple EDCS at the same time. So the reason why the evidence in humans is limited is because of assessing, because given that reason, not easy to capture environmental exposure assessment. So which make the assessing public health impacts kind of difficult. So we needed to handle this to find some innovation or innovative exposure assessment, and then try to link this exposure attributable to, the health, population health. How do we accurately to capture the exposure, and how do we accurately to categorize the burden of disease from such exposure? So I think this is the kind of difficult topic, but very interesting and useful. Okay, the ideas, so that we can provide us some more ideas about how to protect peoples, how do we sustain our population health, and how do we actually to protect our next generation. So this is a very relevant topic, both to environment, public health, and individual health as well. So first, let's see sharing some, our knowledge in POPs. So we focus on dioxin and in breast milk study. So dioxin, so what do we mean? Dioxin, I already said dioxin is PCDDS and a PCDFS. So what is it about? So dioxin are family of complex chemicals containing chloride, known as a polychlorinated P-dioxin. We say, so this means like a PCDDS. And the related furangs, okay, which is a furan, related furangs. So this is also polychlorinated dibenzofurans. Okay, so this is the PCDFS. In a word, there are 75 PCDDS and 135 PCDFS. So they are the homologue in a family of dioxin. Okay, so the most toxic prototype of dioxin is like that. Say 2,3,7,8 tetrachloride dibenzenol parodioxin. So this is PCDD. So this is most toxic. The chemical structure is like the right side. Okay, the right side is chemical because they with two benzene. Okay, and connected to benzene atom and connected with the oxygen atoms. Okay, so this is like chemical structures. And another group of related chemical are the polychlorinated bisphenol. So this is PCBS. So some PCBS actually have dioxin-like toxicity. So we're putting them together because they are related to dioxin and dioxin-like, chemicals, because they have very similar human toxicity effect. Okay, particularly to kids, our newborn kids and the children. So important source of dioxin products in the past. So it is because of the use of chloride as bleach in the paper and the wood pulp industries. The manufacture and the use of chlorated herbicide discharged from incineration plants. But nowadays, it's from burning. Okay, so burning, so which is from the waste incinerator or like a metal reprocessing. So dioxin load, so human like burden, in humans comes from dietary intake from dioxin content food. So majority of the dioxin actually because of injection from food. So including kind of breast milk, dairy products, animal and poultry meat, eggs, fish, and to a lesser extent, which is vegetable. Okay, so vegetable very less because of from usually like a cat fat. Okay, so products with fat content because dioxin, which is fatty soluble. Okay, so it actually accumulated in mainly in our fatty tissues. And maternal transfer at birth, and of course some occupational exposure in some industry, like a herbicide product in use. But if the people without occupational history, so mainly from diet. So let's look into the some results from dioxin in breast milk from the Hong Kong study. So there are two studies conducted in this area. One is in 2002, another is 2008. So recently, my research team actually conducted the third surveys for dioxin study, but we cannot release the result. So we only release these two, previous result. So we can find that the mean concentration per gram of lipid weight in terms of PCDDS and the PCDFS that are dioxin, the type. Actually, according to according to the standard of like a per gram of lipid weight in terms of WHO toxic equivalent, we say WHO TCQS, which is toxic equivalent. We need some formula to transfer. So so that people can standardize, can be compared directly, because the lipid, everyone's body, when you look at your body, the lipid, we say the weighting for lipid is different, right? So after we standardize, and then in Hong Kong, we have a 7.48 pg per gram for PCDDS or PCDFS, and 3.79 pg per gram for PCBS. And given putting together the total, given a total of 11.27 pg per gram for PCDDS or PCDFS and PCBS combined. So this is the main result for that. So we need to compare with the previous years. So compare with the first time, 2002, the mean WHTCQ in 2009, which is 9% lower for PCDDS or PCDFS, 18% lower for PCBS. So it tells us that there is a general declining trend in the levels of PCB for POPs in Hong Kong. But this level was still higher than those in some other Asia Pacific countries. So I highlight here, say higher than, okay, so hopefully the result is true, but still we need to check if the methodology for laboratory, the test, if that is of any like a variation or even like error. So still need to check. Okay, but anyway, we can find there is a decline trend for POPs, so which reflect the improvement in environment. Okay, so because burning plastic or tires, burning kind of in Hong Kong, which is not actually a common practice in Hong Kong already, which actually also reduce say the emission or source of the POPs, okay, from this kind of process. So the second part relates to the evidence on EDCS and human health that is related to pesticide exposure and fertility, say the research. Okay, so I believe maybe this part is a kind of related to agriculture. So that for the pesticides include three types. One is the herbicide that is used for destroying weeds, and the other unwanted vegetation. And second is insecticides. So that is used for controlling a wide variety of insects. The third one is the fungicide that is used to prevent the growth of molds and the mildew. Disinfectants for preventing the spread of bacteria, and the compounds used to control mice and rats. Due to the widespread use of agricultural chemicals in food production, people are exposed to low level of pesticide residues through their diet. But scientists do not yet have a clear understanding of the health effects of the pesticide residues. So this is also gaps to remind us there is something we can do Okay, so we don't want to do Me Too study, but actually there are some space if we have resources which deserve to do something. Okay, so in terms of insecticides, so what are the types? So insecticides are commonly used in agriculture, public health, and industrial applications, as well as household and commercial use, such as control of roaches and termites. So in my department, okay, so in our department health, okay, Department of Public Health, we actually regularly, we have some people to using kind of insecticide to control maybe crouchers in our office. So each time we needed to leave the office, and then after they have the practice, you know, so and then we actually are suggested to come back. Okay, so if something's just kind of pesticide, you know, the say residuals likely in somewhere, okay, in the office even. So based on their chemical nature, insecticides are classified into 4 groups. So first one is organic insecticides. Second is synthetic insecticides. And third one is inorganic insecticides. And the last one is, cannot say, is unclassified, you know, miscellaneous, okay, compounds. So the most common used insecticides are the organophosphate, we give, you know, already say OPS, and the pyrethroid, okay, pyrethroid. So we say this is the PYR, give a term, PYR, and carbamate. So China, as we know that, which is one of the largest agriculture countries. So growing evidence suggests that human fertility rates are declining in both developed and developing countries. So this is a big issue, which is related to our human being and society sustainable. So these reduced fertilities have been assumed to be associated with economic change, adverse lifestyle factors, and environmental contaminants such as pesticides. So as we know that China's largest agriculture countries in the world, with more than 300,000 tons of agriculture pesticide used annually. So organophosphate, so OPS, and pyrethroids, say PYRS, are the most widely used groups of pesticides in agriculture and the residence areas in China. So you can see I provide some data, like 70,000 tons of OPS used in the year of 2015, and 4,000 tons of PYRS used in the year of 2013. So that is actually based on the data that I can find from the document. So environmental exposure to this agriculture pesticide, OPS, and PYRS is thought to occur primarily through consumption of food contaminated with pesticide residue, and by inhalation or ingestion of contaminated household dust after the application of pesticide indoors. Epidemiological studies conducted in China have demonstrated relatively high levels of exposure to OPS and the PYRS in women, but none assess pesticide exposure by measuring pesticide metabolites in urine. So the study I share is the objectives that we're using, like a prospective study, so cohort study, to prospectively evaluate the association between preconception pesticide exposure and the couples' fertilities in Shanghai, China, with OPS and the PYRS are the most widely used pesticide. So between 2013 August and April 2015, 1,182 eligible women they referred as the baseline were recruited at 2 pre-conception care clinics in Shanghai, China. So to be eligibility, the women are registered Shanghai residents who were not planned to move in the next 2 years. This is going to have a stable follow-up rate. So we do not want to eventually after 2 years, so lost too many people, so the study will be failed. So they are need 20 or above years of age and had stopped using contraception recently and plan to conceive without assisted reproductive technology and to give birth in one of the hospitals participating in Shanghai birth cohort. So we are using, actually 3 major parts. One is questionnaire. Okay, second, to collect the fertility outcome. The third is metabolite in urine sample measurements. So first part, questionnaire. So questionnaire is the same as many other studies. So we collect like the social demographic data, lifestyle characteristic, perceive the stress, because stress may affect fertility, and pregnancy, and occupational pesticide exposure and reproductive medical history. For the fertility outcome measurement, there are 2. One is TTP, another infertilities. So TTP means that the number of months it took for a couple to conceive and was assessed during the bi-monthly telephone follow-up kind of interview. So this is TTP, say time to event. So event here is pregnant, so time to pregnant. For the infertilities was defined as having TTP for more than 12 months. So it means that 1 year, not yet, okay, pregnant without any protection. Okay, so any like a protect to prevent to pregnant. So 1 year join this program, not yet got pregnant. So this is with defined as the infertility. Okay, so the data is based on the above telephone follow-up data to use TTP to redefine the outcome. So in terms of the most important part, one of most important, so every part is important, right? So we measure the metabolite of pesticide in urine sample. So we choose from the literature review. Actually, we use morning first spot urine. Okay, so first morning spot urine, and then we take this urine sample and the storage, put the storage in the low frequent and not low temperature freezer, and until further analysis for uses. So we analyze 3 metabolites of OPS. So the 6. Okay, the 6 metabolites. So this is kind of a DAP. Okay, metabolites of OPS, and another 3 metabolites of PYRS. So this we use these 6 plus 3 metabolites to represent internal say pesticide exposure from the outer environment. Okay, so we of course needed to provide the data about the limits of the text, LOD, for the pesticide metabolites. So analysis, which is about the statistical analysis, they use like a Cox model. So we that no need to repeat here. So you can see that the result for the OPS metabolite, so 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see that for the above 4, their detection rate is so higher. Okay, even for the DETP, so 100% people, they can detect such pesticide metabolite. So it means that indicates people have exposure because you can detect it, right? And then the right side provides you the percentile, like a 25%, 50%, which is a median, and then 75 percentile and 95 percentile. So that is the pattern. But you can see that. So for the OPS, So 6 metabolites actually you can be detected from the people, pregnant women in the Shanghai birth cohort. But for the fourth, DETP, that type of metabolite for OPS, that is 100% people can detect it. And then for the PYBS, you can see that for the first one, which is the 3PBA. So you can see that 99% people can detect this kind of exposure of a pesticide, this kind of pesticide, say PYRS. So it means that we find that in the population, they have pesticide residual exposure. Okay. So we are interested for us, okay, public health people, we are interested in the association, the risk to people. So you can see that from that I highlight here, DETP. So this is the 100% people, they can detect from their urine sample. So you can see there is a kind of, say, outcome. So exposure to OPS and the PYRS were associated with both TTP and infertility in our study population. So women in the highest quartile of DETP, which is one of the major OPS urine metabolites, and the 3PBA, that is the major PYR urine metabolite, had longer TTP and increased risk of infertilities compared with women in the lowest quartile of the exposure. Okay, so this is our main finding. So this indicates some dose response relationship. Okay, so indicates some, because in the highest internal dose region, we find it with higher risk of our defined clinical outcome. So finally, this publication was, this paper was published in Environmental Health Perspectives, which is the top environmental health journal, okay, in the major category. So the last, part I'm going to share with you is the bisphenol A exposure and the multiple health outcomes. So BPA actually, which is very widely used industry chemicals product produced in large quantities in the production of polycarbonate plastics, epoxy resins, and other polymeric materials, and also for certain paper products like cash receipts. Okay, so it is widely seen in the environment, which is a unicubus. So BPA was synthesized by dining in 100 years ago, 1891. Since 1940, BPA has been extensively utilized in the production of a variety of consumer products. So you can see that the upper one, which is estradiol, okay, like estrogen, you know, estradiol, but the lower one is the structure of BPA. So you can see that they are very similar. So this makes our human body, it's hard to detect which one is which one. So when our human body meets with the BPA, so it may the human body will think it is our good estrogen one. So BPA in this time, they can mimic the estrogen. So let our human body actually got, damaged or lost function. Okay, and then consequently cause different problems. So BPA actually, it's half lifetime in environment. Okay, not in our human body, in the out environment, which is 10 to 14 days. About 4.4 million tons used in 2011. So it's a total daily intake. According to the EFSA, which is a European Food Safety Administration, okay, so European EU standard, right? Say we shouldn't every day like per kilogram for our human body weight per day per kilogram not exceed 15 like a microgram, 50 microgram. So, however, BPA can be found in the urine of 90% of United States adults. So, in United States, 5% of BPA used in food contact applications, and actually the detectable levels of BPA over 90% of urine samples. So, this is some facts that I actually extract from the literature. So you can see that the sources, which is everywhere, you know, from the diet. So you can see it came from like contaminated food, water, beverage. Overall exposure, so somebody, you know, else, they detect, which is per day per kilogram, is a 0.5 to 0.6 microgram. And 78 to 94% of daily BPA exposure, according to European food, you know, safety standard agent, and then a dietary source, which is like you know 0.1 to 0.4 microgram per kilogram per day. So which also not only from a diet, can also be from dermal contact. So which is a thermal paper. So you every day we buy food from supermarket or from everywhere, they give you a thermal paper. So thermal paper, they actually contain BPA, particularly in summer season. It can contact from our skin, can absorb directly, okay, directly into our human body. So thermal paper, which is also one of the major source. And of course, occupational exposure can enter our human body from inhalation or from like a dermal contact. Another one is the dental, okay, dental sealant. So that actually I point out some major issues. For the toxicokinetic of BPA, so it's a half-lifetime of BPA to our human body. Before we say for in environment, half-lifetime. On human body, which is very short, only 5.4 hours. And then 94% eliminated from body within 24 hours. So if we do not have repeated exposure, so BPA only one off, it's okay. Unfortunately, we use BPA daily. Okay, so that will cumulative affect our human body. So first pass metabolize it's in liver. And which actually from active form, say free BPA, and then becomes inactive form. So we say this is a BPA gluconate. About 100% excretion by urine. So urine biomarker or urine metabolite, which is very accurate to reflect the BPA exposure. So technically, as I said, which is no cumulative in our adipose tissue, but cause chronic effect when repeated every day and a cumulative exposure. So we got National Science Foundation of China. Okay, so National Nature Science Foundation of China, we got a tool, say grant from mainland China, and then we create Shenzhen 9 shift cohort. So this actually, the study was actually one of my PhD students used the data to complete her training for PhD. So we collect the blood sample, urine sample, questionnaire, and use urine sample to use a HPLD, so MS mass, to measure, you know, the urine biomarkers, and then we have some BPA concentration. We're using first morning spot urine as standard as other researchers and questionnaires outcomes, and then we know that our detect we say our LOD limit of detection, that is 0.03 microgram per liter. So that is very good detection data. So this is me. This many years ago, and my research team, we actually handle for the preparation for the for our samples and then put in my I have 5 freezer, low temperature freezer in Shenzhen. So we store there, okay, for further analysis. Because for this study, one of our outcome is metabolic syndrome. Okay, so we're according to ATP3, you know, the metabolic syndrome definition, so which include the 5 parts. One, our waste circumstances, our waste circumstances. You know, if somebody with too large with the circumstances, and then we will say this is the apple-shaped obesity, apple, okay, like apple. So another is TG, okay, so this is the triglyceride, okay, so the third one is the cholesterol and the blood pressure and our fasting glucose. So any 3 of them positive, and then which is positive for metabolic syndrome according to ATP3. So this is for BPA preparation, so which is complicated. Okay, we needed to get a very long time preparation and dry it to use nitrogen to blow, and then need overnight, and finally to have a data analysis. So this data laboratory analysis we conducted, my PhD student, under the supervision of one professor from Shenzhen CDC. So we actually completed this part at least, I think, 1 year. Okay, for analyze 2,000 human samples. So these some results. So metabolic syndrome actually incidence. We follow up our subject, which is follow-up rate, which is about say 84.6%, and among 1,038 subjects returned in the cohort, 200 of them develop metabolic syndrome with a 4-year cumulative incidence of 16.3%. So the lower table shows you that the description of unadjusted or creatinine adjusted BPA concentration, because we must adjust for creatinine, because everyone, you know, there are variation of the concentration of the say human beings, some very concentrated, some very light. Okay, so when we compare with chemicals in the urine sample, we must create the concentration of creatinine so that it could be standardized and it can be comparable. Okay, so you can see that our adjusted creatinine adjusted BPA for the geometric mean, which is a 3.89 microgram per gram. Okay, and then we have a range from low, from middle and high. That is according to the tertile, the median we provide here. So you can see the data, website and distribution. And then we use a very simple formula to estimate the daily intake. So we wanted to see our Chinese population, our daily intake for BPA, which is compared with the EU standard. So how about our results? So you can see that we find that the young people, the younger people, they daily intake more than relatively older people. So because you can see daily intake for less than 25 from the table, less than 25 years old, which the median is 155.64. For the 25 to 29 is 131.66 per unit, okay? And for the relatively older people, like 30, 40, you know, relatively, they are lower intake. However, even like that, okay, all the EDI, so daily intake exposure of our population are lower than the tolerable daily intake. That is defined by European. Okay, so the conclusion that from our the data say Chinese population, the BPA exposure is lower than Caucasian. Okay, than the Western people. So this is some data because our outcome is metabolic syndrome. So we wanted to see the exposure of BPA metabolite, okay, reflected in the urine metabolite. Is there any dose response relationship? So fortunately, we found that this prospective cohort study provide evidence to support a suggestive association between BPA exposure and the metabolic syndrome. The marginal increased risk of metabolic syndrome in the entire cohort was primarily restricted to the current smokers, which indicate a positive interaction affecting between smoking and BPA on the development of metabolic syndrome. However, the limitation of this study is that we only collect the first morning spot urine. Okay, given the BPA half-life time is so short, the question from people is that whether this spot urine can represent the chronic exposure, the whole life exposure. So this is the inherent limitation for using like a spot urine to measure, okay, the exposure. So inherent limitation, that means that cannot solve based on current study design. So we see that further larger study with multiple urine sample is suggested with need multiple sampling with repeat sampling, okay, repeated sampling different time period, but which needs a huge money. So for my small team, no, I do not have such resources. Is there any alternative approach for properly exposure assessment for chronic exposure? This is the question. So I would like to deal with these methodology issues. So how, from my, in a realistic thinking, so can I provide some innovation to solve this problem? So for this study, we publish in Occupational Environmental Medicine. So the first author is my PhD student. So how to develop a novel tool, this last part, okay, to assess long-term exposure to BPA for health risk assessment. So luckily, I got funding from Health Medical Research Fund, which support me to do a prostate cancer study. This is because prostate cancer study is increasing in Hong Kong. So they think maybe everyone, so looking for anyone can provide any ideas can help the government to solve the problem. So we know that widespread and increasing use of estrogen like a BPA has linked to prostate cancer in animal, but human being study is scarce. Is a scar. So the objective to me is going to provide the first epidemiological evidence on a possible exposure response relationship between chronic BPA exposure and the prostate cancer risk. So we conduct a hospital-based case control study. So I recruit for this paper published, okay, before this paper, we recruit 431 newly diagnosed prostate cancer with age matching. Held 400, match the control. We developed a new BPA assessment tool based on literature review to reconstruct each participant's past exposure to BPA according to a master list of food or beverage container under different handling process. So this is my formula to calculate the cumulative CBPAI. This is a cumulative bisphenol A index. So I use BPA intensity from each product, using each product, and the frequency of usage, and the net years of usage such specific containers, and then summation. So for example, Mr. Wang, okay, so he used more than 20 products that potentially have BPA. So we summation these 20 as the accumulation of exposure. Okay, and then use formula to estimate. So this is the method that I used to. You can see that the left side, this is about the type of materials. And the second column is the practice of usage. For example, for the plastic bag, okay, you can see for the plastic bag. So we ask about For the product, okay, we see that for the plastic, like a box, okay, the third type. So we say this is the practice of use for contain the cold food, hot water heated by microwave stove. Because for each kind of practice, we search literature and then to find if anyone do measurement to report the concentration of BPA based on this scenario. Okay, so we try our best to provide the concentration BPA data. In addition, I invite two experts. One is from United States, introduced by National Institute of Health. They helped me, okay, to make a ranking, expert ranking. And another is a professor from Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So they are blinded each other. So they ranking, okay? So I compare their ranking with my literature review. So mine is unbiased literature review. And then they compare each other. And then I will see if their rating actually is consistent or not. So this is result. So, you know, the three methods, actually three, you can look at that like three people to rating. So literature review, expert one, the name, and expert two, the given name, okay? So you can see that the intercorrelation coefficient, so which is above the lowest one is 86, okay? And the confidence interval, the lowest one is 0.73 to 0.93. So from 0.86 to 0.94. So according to, I highlight here, the rules of the sum of rho, okay? The value of interclass correlation coefficient, if greater than 0.75 are interpreted as excellent agreement. So my study for the development of BPA chronic exposure, my method is excellent. So for the clinical data, we search from histological confirmation data for prostate cancer. So this is defined by oncologist and also the surgeon, the renal surgeon. An epidemiological study use standard questionnaire. And then for the statistics method, I only use a multiple logistic regression. I think many people know how to do that. So this is the demographic data, the case and the control, and some characteristics like age, education, place of birth in Hong Kong mainland or South Asia, something like that. And then we provide the PSA. This is for screening prostate cancer, the score. Okay, so you can see the prostate cancer score is very high, 119 above, so which is very high already, okay, for the screening. So this is some basic data. And then we analyze, to us, so I'm always looking for a dose response relationship. So you can see that I highlight here, which is a CBPAI, that is a cumulative BPA index. So whatever I use sensitivity analysis, okay, so you can see that there is a possible dose response relationship between chronic BPA exposure and the prostate cancer risk. So the next step for us, I would like to see where the BPA is likely from. So based on a pairs, different analysis, so I find that mainly the risk of BPA, the release from what process and what material, that is because from the drinking of cold boiled water kept in plastic container. So it indicates that the candidate risk is very high, 3 point something, and it's significant. Okay, so it indicates that please do not use the plastic bottle to contain the boiled hot water, because which will make the BPA release from the material. Okay, so public health is usually to find something. Okay, so this study developed a new tool for assessing chronic exposure to BPA. That was a challenge in the past study. So this is the new, okay, something new. And then more importantly, this study provides the first epidemiological evidence that chronic exposure to environmental BPA was associated with an elevated prostate cancer risk, thus contributes to the growing body of literature on the harmful effect of BPA, providing additional evidence for removal. We say remove from source. So this is our public health prevention and control measures. Policy implication. More stringent policies on reducing, restricting, and eliminating EDCS should help to lower the levels of dioxin and other POPs and BPA. Continued surveillance for POPs in human biosamples, such as milk, which is breast milk, okay, and BPA, milk and urine, as well as POPs, and pesticide residues in common foodstuff, BPA in plastic food beverage containers will provide us with important information on human exposure that will be necessary for tracking our process and in the future regular making health risk assessment. Okay, so also requires parties to adopt a range of control measures to reduce and restrict, where feasible, eliminate the release of environmental disrupting chemicals, particularly the POPs, for best reserving resources to our next generation for sustainable development. So these are funding support. Okay, last we from the Research Grant Council, Health Medical Surveillance, and the National Nature Science Foundation of China. So last but not least, I would sincerely thanks Professor Haoming Lam, okay, Professor Lam, okay, for kind invitation and provide me opportunity to share my research with every of you. So thank you for your attention and patience. Okay, thanks again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
so
thank you.
question time.
I have two questions.
Okay, so Amy has some question first.
Thanks for a very clear presentation. And is there any research on the correlation between BPA and breast cancer, because the breast is full of adipose tissue? This is my
Yes.
question.
This is a very good question. I haven't yet seen. Yes.
All right. And then the second question is there are some policy suggestions based on those data. So would there be any advice on food choice or diets based on those data?
So there is a very limited research in this area. So that for my prostate cancer study, so I actually say this is the first epidemiological study. It's really hard to, particularly for capture the environment exposure. So yes, when people, if they cannot find a good biomarker, so the study actually is not realistic to conduct. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. So any question from the audience? Can unmute yourself and talk. So the data make me nervous, right? So because drinking bottled waters, they are very common. And in order to save the bottle, sometimes we use the plastic bottle. And what you said is using a boiled water, you release the BPA and then increase the prostate cancer incident. So is that because of the temperature or because of the storage of the water?
Yes, I think thanks, Professor Len, for your it's a very important question. For the so like boiling water, keep in the plastic bottle. So this, if we use a Cantonese and say this is 摊冻水. So in my paper revision, the editor requests me to make it clear. So because he not very understand, and because my previous term is not like that. I using say cooling the water, putting the hot water in a bottom, and then say not very clear, and then finally he suggests me say like a store. Actually, it needs to say store the hot boiling water into a plastic bottle, something like that. Okay.
So when you're adding the water to the bottle, is it still hot or you already?
Hot water.
I see.
Yeah, it's a hot water directly. Once you burn the hot water, and then you immediately put the hot water in the plastic bottle. So which because of the temperature, the hot temperature, and then which make the chemicals much easier to be released from the material. So which increase the concentration of BPA in the water, so that people, when they drink, and then they are contaminated.
Okay, I see. So for the audience, so you can ask question, or if you cannot talk directly, you can also type in your question to the chat box. Anyone? Quite quiet today.
I think because of the chemical, everyone hates chemical.
So I think I see Joanna's and also Albert, right? We have questions?
Yeah, I just a comment, because I work on packaging material in my previous jobs. So I believe in the industry, there are efforts trying to reduce the BPA in the plastic containers. So there's such action going on right now. So I don't know what's the progress. Maybe it's worthwhile to check. Okay, that's number one. Number two is I understand, you know, a lot of contaminants that would infect the human body and health and metabolism and causing possible health detrimental or damage. You know, a few years back, there was a plasticizer in the plastic bags.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some study also, like you know, university students in a community, they eat foods that are packed in the plastic containers, and their body is also plasticizers. And I believe plasticizer is also one of the, you know, things that are not good for the health. And then follow after plasticizer, it was the microplastics, also decomposed from the plastic containers. So there's just so many different things. So I think for the consumers, what do we have to be careful about? So what would be the better way to approach this problem? Should they stop producing these materials or what? Just like now, everybody is not using the plastic bags. Even in the store, you buy several fruit, but you have to carry them one by one. Because if you want to use plastic bags, then you have to pay for it. So it's just puzzling me. There are so many things affecting our health every day. So how should we best to approach such problem and not to be just scared? Because the long-term effect and the final result is all very difficult to assess with real life human beings.
Right. So my question is also very similar to Joanne. I just say it's a wonderful talk, and then what with knowing all the BPA and whatever, how can we as an individual, how can we help the environment? Number two is how can we serving as a group to help our community? So it's a similar. So that's my two questions, as an individual and as a group.
Okay. So thanks, Joanna and Albert. Okay, so thanks for your comment. Okay, so I'm thinking about this is a big project. It's really not that easy to answer based on our individual, like a researcher or even a group of like a research team. It's really hard, because even if when we look at the Stockholm Convention, they advocate, say, the efforts needed to like restrict and eventually reduce the use, say, reduce the produce, and also like eventually, say, our goal or ultimate goal is going to eliminate it. Okay, but currently, I think the stage is only like to reduce or restrict from manufacturing, from produce, and also even from uses, and then from dispose. Okay, so the whole procedure actually need a collaboration or advert from like the government or even from society, from NGO and from individuals. So everyone needed to participate. So this is a very big project. Yeah. So even in Hong Kong, in our kind of some supermarket, they replace the previously like a plastic bag. They use like a paper bag. So this is already kind of we say the actions already taken by some. So if everyone starts to taking the action like that, also I think the reducing, at least we have already achieved the goal for reducing or restricting. Yes, for myself. So if you so we usually take your own bag, like a clothes bag to purchase food, to storage food, and also I try to not to use plastic like a bottom water. So I use like a glass. I use a glass container to keep my food, lunch box, and also use a. So this is a plastic or a glass one? Ever? Are you mute? Okay, good. Anyway, so according to our literature review,
Metal bottle.
metal. So according to our literature review, because we compare our BPA from literature review data and from compare with two experts, so we find that using a glass, the BPA is 0. The people test many times, so glass which is 0, but for plastic, there are actually have some variation of BPA detection. For the metal, so we think currently, I think a metal, if there is no lining, we don't know if your metal actually have lining or not. Oh, okay. So that that should be no plus, no BPA. Yeah, no problem. So you're safe. Ever you're safe.
Okay, so yeah, so Shirley's talk has been recorded. So for people who want to revisit what she has talked about or have further questions, you can watch our video and also send email to us to reach Shirley. So before let me ask whether there's still a last minute question from here. So if not, then let me do some advertisement for the next talk. So yeah, please bring up the poster. Okay, so our next talk will be in March 28th. It will be given by Professor Meiji, now in Birmingham University. And her talk will be more related to food. The title is Towards a Sustainable Food Future in China, Consumers' Intention and Policy Implications. So she's a social scientist. She will address this question in a policy way. So that what is the policy that people can do to increase the intention of the customers to have more environmental safe and environmental sustainable food, especially in China. It is a survey done in China. I think Shirley and I also participate. So we will listen to what Professor Meiji will say in March. Okay, so with that, I thank everybody and I thank the speaker, Professor Shirley Chen again, and good night and have a good dinner for people in Hong Kong and our international friend. Have a good day. Bye-bye.